savvy. But hopefully we can get him back on one more time. Hopefully you can try to jump back on with us if he is back. Harrison, do we have you back, my friend?
Hey, I'm back. Someone doesn't want us to talk about this. I don't know what's going on.
That's quite all right. Hey, I appreciate you coming. I don't know what the deal is here with our internet reception, but I appreciate you coming back, Harrison. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you were gonna say, that's okay, but, and then you were gonna rebut what I had to say. So I'm interested to hear what you had to say.
I appreciate that. If what you just said, miscommunication, we didn't do it on purpose, I'd be totally okay with that. I think most of America would, and we probably wouldn't be talking about it. The problem that I have, Harrison, with respect, is that the campaign has gone after this employee. They said she had a medical episode. They said that we were allowed to be there, right? We got permission, yet they haven't shown any evidence of that. You guys claimed, not you, but the campaign claimed that you guys had a video that you were going to release of the whole thing. You never released that. And now Donald Trump in an interview over the weekend is saying that this was a setup. You see where I'm going with this? Like, your explanation would make sense. Hey, maybe it was a miscommunication. Totally fair. But the campaign that was the staffers that were there are saying something very different. See where I'm going with that?
Well, I think you have a couple things. You have a staff, a campaign that went into an event at the invitation of Gold Star member families who went to the hallowed grounds of Arlington National Cemetery and left, or got there, and never expected this to be a political issue. Never expected it to be. We're still talking about this. This happened last week.
Right. So is Trump, by the way. I think he's still talking about it too.
Well, I would be a little perturbed too if you go and you do something and you're with people who were, paralyzed by this horrific withdrawal due to the Biden-Harris administration. You're dealing with families that have mourned the loss of a loved one. Right. I'd be a little ticked off too if now your being there has become a political issue in which you're taking away from why the president was there. He was there to honor those that were lost after the terrible withdrawal of Afghanistan. And that's really the only story here.
Question. 45 American soldiers were killed in Afghanistan under the Trump administration. Do you know how many of those funerals Donald Trump attended? Do you have that information?
Well, let's be real here.
I am. I'm asking you a very direct question. Do you know how many funerals that Donald Trump attended of those 45 American soldiers that died in Afghanistan under his watch? Do you know the answer to that?
If you're asking a rhetorical question
no,
that
it's
you
not.
have an answer to,
no, it's not rhetorical. The answer is zero. The answer is zero. He attended 0 funerals, and he went to 0 of those grave sites. So, I mean,
he went to dignified transfers. Listen, if you want to go down the list of what presidents gone to actual funerals and which they haven't, I would say Donald Trump is probably leading the pack when it comes to not just military funerals, but law enforcement funerals. This is a man who's extremely gracious with his time in honoring those that have lost their life in the line of duty, be it law enforcement or in the line of duty.
Let me ask you another question. Let me ask you one more question, Harrison, about this, and then let's move on to something else. I guess it's a 2-part question. Have you ever seen someone at a gravesite with a smile, grin on their face with a thumbs up? Do you not find that a little strange and odd? I've never seen that before. Have you ever seen something like that?
Have you been to the 9/11 memorial in New York City in Lower Manhattan?
I have.
You know how many people are smiling and treating that as if it's more of a, not so much of a gravesite, but of a tourist attraction. I've been to Arlington multiple times. Not every single person in that beautiful area is stone-faced. It's a very chilling environment. I'll give you that. But if the president was posing for a photo, he's going to smile. He's going to do his quintessential thumbs in the air. He wasn't celebrating the deaths. I don't know what the question is alluding to. If you're saying that his decorum at Arlington was wrong, then that's your prerogative to feel that way. But let me tell you this. If you talk to the people that actually matter in the situation, which quite frankly, you and I don't matter in this situation, the people that do matter are the families that invited President Trump to attend. They felt comforted by his being there.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt what you're saying at all.
At the end of the day, your feelings towards his behavior there don't matter because the families that invited him who lost their loved one, never to see them again due to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's inept capabilities as commander-in-chief, they were happy with Donald Trump being there. And at the end of the day, as a proud American who supports our military,
Yeah.
I'm okay if they're okay.
What about the families that did not invite him? Do their opinions matter? Because there's a family of a fallen soldier that was 3 feet away from where that picture was taken, and they were very upset at that picture. So forget about you and me for a moment. But my question to you is, what about those families? Do their opinions matter? Or just that one family that invited him?
You're always going to have, listen, not every Gold Star family is a Trump fan. Not every Gold Star family is a Biden fan.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have people that, whether based on politics, whether based on personal animosity, or just based off of just personal decorum, that they want their son or daughter's gravesite to be untouched by politics, and they have the right to that feeling. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, Donald Trump was invited to this ceremony, and he did so. And the families that requested him to be there, he honored their request. He was there. He didn't do anything maliciously. He didn't do anything to purposely impact the families of those that may see a different view. And at the end of the day, this is a non-story. And, the fact that, media organizations like yourself want to keep on hounding the president on this, that's your prerogative. That's what your audience may want to hear. But overall, the American people want to talk about the fact that our veterans, our living veterans, are living in a very different America because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. When you look at inflation, when you look at the border, when you look at potential World War III on the rise, you're talking about men and women that are going to end up having to be pushed into another war because of our leadership, our failed leadership. So these are the issues that are actually impacting our military community, not to mention the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, with the signing of a pen, took away thousands of our armed active duty service members because they refused to get a vaccine. There are bigger things impacting our nation's veterans, our nation's Gold Star families than this story. But again, it's a media narrative. They would love nothing more than to divide Donald Trump from our veterans communities. They do it every single election, and it's not going to work.
Do you feel like the media divided Donald Trump when he said he didn't respect John McCain because he was captured? Was that the media, or was those Donald Trump's comments?
The habitual replaying and bringing that feud up, it's within the media's prerogative to divide Republicans. Yes, it is. Now, the President Trump can have his own personal feelings towards John McCain, Mitt Romney, Brian Kemp. That's his own prerogative.
Oh, I get that. We don't have to like people. I'm with you on that, Harrison, 150%. But I think there's a difference between not liking somebody and saying you don't respect somebody because they were captured. All I'm saying, Harrison, is that's not a media narrative. Donald Trump said, "I don't respect John McCain. I tend to respect people that were not captured." The
media narrative is when you run this BS suckers and losers thing in the Atlantic, when they still talk about this, when they talk about how Trump didn't feel comfortable around people who have lost limbs. Meanwhile, he walks around Brian Mast and talks to members of our military that are amputees, triple, double amputees. These are the narratives, and it's all predicated on this John McCain story, this rift that they had. It's just another straw on the camel's back. And, the reality is, the media is not intended to be Donald Trump's friend. We know that. And you see this every single election. He tries to build a wedge from what is a very secure part of our base, which is our active duty and veteran community that are supporting Donald Trump once again. They just continue with these narratives because they want to build division.
Okay. So John Kelly,
and they want to.
So General Milley and John Kelly, they're just full of BS. Then is that people that have spent decades?
These are political people who have an animosity towards Donald Trump, and I think their animosity towards Donald Trump gets in the middle of their day jobs.
So
yes,
so it's your take that they're just liars. When Milley puts it in writing that he called people suckers and losers. You're calling them a liar, basically. I just want to be
when
clear.
you have 19 people disputing their claims, there's three sides to the truth, and when you have more people disputing their claim than people actually advocating for their claim, I'll let the American people decide who they want to believe.
Okay, well, there's a lot of people throughout the country, credible people, many Republicans, that have disputed Donald Trump's claims that he won the 2020 elections and the Democrats cheated. Is it still your take and the take of the campaign that Donald Trump won the 2020 election and that Joe Biden was not a free and fair elected president?
So I haven't interacted with you most at all, really. This is my first interaction with you. But this just seems like the Democrats' greatest hits interview.
Well,
so if we want to go down the list of the Democrats' greatest hits, We
Okay.
can do that, but how productive is that? The
Okay,
president has been
well-
very, very, very clear. I'll answer your question because I'm not going to back away from it. I think it's a stupid question.
It's not stupid at all, but go ahead.
The premise of the question is tiresome. We've asked and answered. The president has a very firm belief about how the results of the 2020 election took place. We all know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are president and vice president. We know that because our border is open. Inflation has been up 20% since they got into office. We're on the brink of World War III. Mm-hmm. We have a massive tragedy when it comes to our fentanyl crisis. We have a rising crime epidemic in this country. We have violent crime and migrant crime.
Violent crime is down under the Biden administration. I want to let you finish.
No, you're wrong, because you have big cities that aren't reporting. They're under qualifying crime. They're not reporting crime. And the big report that everyone likes to focus on doesn't include some of our biggest cities that are having a crime wave. So yes, crime is up.
So crime is up. Crime is up because you're making an assumption that they're not reporting crime. I'm just going by what you're saying.
It's not. Just look on the reports. They're not reporting it. The report that everyone points to does not include some of America's biggest cities. So whether they report it or not, and you have DAs that are, if they're lowering crime from violent crime offenses to misdemeanors. This is all happening. You don't have to take my word for it. Ask someone that lives in one of the 5 boroughs in New York City. Ask someone in Chicago.
I would rather ask the people. I would rather ask the FBI and the people that actually put the stats down, not a regular everyday person that doesn't have the stats right in front of them. But that's okay. If you just
they have the stats that matter the most. It's how they feel. And when people walk out of their house and they don't feel safe,
how they feel,
because there's carjackings, there's stabbings, there's shootings, there's burglaries. Regardless of what the stats say, it's how the American people feel. And the American people in a lot of our big cities and a lot of our suburban areas are not feeling safe because there is a rise in crime. I live in Fairfax County. Crime is on the rise in Fairfax County. Regardless of what the data may say, we feel it because we just heard that there was a guy that was shot and killed at the neighborhood gas station 4 months ago. We feel it every single day. We get the crime alert.
I like you. I want to feel safe, and I want crime to be down, and I don't want innocent people to be harmed, just like you. I'm sure we agree on that. All I'm simply saying is we can only go by the stats, not what people feel, but we'll agree to disagree on that. If you're just joining us, Harrison Fields, he's Trump 2024 surrogate, nice enough to be joining us. I guess my question about inflation, let's talk about a topic that's obviously very important, the economy. Let's talk about inflation. I know, and I guess my question is this: inflation up virtually all over the world. Joe Biden and Harris took over a crumbling economy where people were locked up in their homes. People were not working because of COVID. And by the way, I don't blame Donald Trump for COVID. We can talk about the response to it. But if inflation is up all over the world and we're doing better than most other countries' economies that we compare ourselves to, why wouldn't you give Joe Biden a little bit of credit for that? I guess that's my question.
Listen, I'm actually a consumer of left-wing news more than I am right-wing news. And David Axelrod, no friend to Republicans, he said, when you try to compare the American economy to foreign economies, that's just not a good talking point to use because, quite frankly, the American people don't care about the economy in Japan or the economy in Germany. They don't. They care about the economy that's impacting them every single day, and that's the United States economy, which, under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, you've seen inflation up 20% under their tenure. You've seen things, everyday commodities, gas, milk, ground beef. I'm about to have my wife's about to have a baby in 4 weeks. Baby formula up 30%. Thank you so much. Everyday life is extremely expensive for a lot of Americans. It doesn't matter what South Koreans are paying for beef. It really doesn't. Now, when you talk about the overall inflationary conditions here, prices and wages have almost always have never paced the same. Prices have always outpaced incomes, which is devastating. People are feeling like they're working harder and they're receiving less, which is a terrible thing for people to feel. And they see it every single day. Inflation really hasn't gone down. I mean, the biggest story that I'm still wondering.
It has gone down, though. It's under 3% now. It has gone down. You said inflation hasn't gone down.
The top line number has gone down. It has. But when you look at the everyday commodities that people are consuming, you're not seeing a decrease. And if you're seeing a decrease in one, you're seeing a massive increase in car insurance. So you're looking at, it's like a wobbly stool. One side is getting better, the other side gets worse.
So I just want to be clear, though. You don't blame the war in the Ukraine. You don't blame what's going on in Israel. You don't blame coming out of a pandemic for inflation that took place throughout the world. You only blame Joe Biden and Harris. Is that your characterization?
Yes, because the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act, both of those things were multi-trillion-dollar boondoggles that did not need to be passed. That Republicans, I worked on Capitol Hill when all these things were getting passed.
Right.
And my old boss, Byron Donalds, and the rest of the Republicans said, if you do this, it's going to be a mistake. If you do this, it's going to be a mistake. You had Barack Obama's previous economic advisor said, if you pass these bills, it's going to be a mistake. And they passed the bills, and you see so much spending. We have a spending crisis in this country.
Okay, so let's talk about spending. If you're concerned about spending, then how do you explain
Donald Trump? Yeah.
Well,
it's the same old talking point.
It's not a talking point. It's a fact. Donald Trump got us $8.4 trillion in debt. Sir, with all due respect, that's a fact. That's not. Why do you keep saying I'm bringing up talking points?
It's a disingenuous argument, because when you look at when the spending was actually going out of control, it was the last year and a half when we were dealing with the pandemic. Listen, as a conservative, it was troublesome to see what we had to do to try to level out the economy. But if you're going to blame spending on Trump, yes, Republicans do have spending issues as well.
Sure.
But the brunt of his spending problems were when you talk about the response to COVID. So let's just level set of what that actually is. Now,
so you want to blame COVID for the $8.4 trillion in debt that Trump got us in. But when it comes to Joe Biden and Harris, the inflation had nothing to do with COVID and at all. So when it's convenient and say, well, that wasn't Donald Trump's fault, but well, tell me then, because to me that sounds like a talking point. With all due respect.
Donald Trump all I'm talking about is the last year and a half where you did see trillions of dollars of stimulus going out to businesses and people.
Yes.
A lot of what his spending, a lot of the issues with the spending of the Trump administration was trying to control the economy from failing during a pandemic. Mm-hmm. That's one. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about in Joe Biden is he didn't have to spend the way Trump did when it came to checks in the mail, Operation Warp Speed, PPP. All that stuff was solved under the Trump administration for the most part. What he did on day one, he said he wanted to be more progressive than LBJ and FDR. So what he ended up doing is when he had the trifecta, the House, the Senate, and the White House, he passed his wish list items, which was infrastructure and the Inflation Reduction Act, which really was a Green New Deal subsidy plan under the name of Inflation Reduction Act, which never reduced inflation, which only paid off mega donors in the energy industry with asinine subsidies for energy that is going to eviscerate our energy apparatus, which is the Democrats' plan because they hate fossil fuels and they don't want us to drive gas cars.
I understand that we'll agree to disagree on that, but would you give Joe Biden credit for anything? The manufacturing boom, the fact that unemployment's the lowest it's been in 50 years. It's actually lower now than it was before COVID took place under the Trump administration. Would you give him credit? And then I want to get to Harris and the border, but
these are talking points from the left. If you look at the actual job data, you have more Americans working 2 or 3 jobs. That's one. When you look at who actually is controlling a lot of these jobs, these are government jobs. The government is growing. Main Street is not growing. The government is growing. That's an issue. And then you have non-Americans, a.k.a. illegal immigrants, are the ones that are the beneficiaries of the majority of these jobs. When you look beneath the hood at the actual job data, this is what you see. And then if you look at another indicator of the economy and when it comes to unemployment is the surveys. When the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they go door by door. Actually, I don't think it's BLS. It's another entity. They go door by door and they ask you, what is your job situation? When asked, that survey comes out a way different answer than the realities of the jobs numbers. And if you look at the jobs numbers, this is the same jobs numbers that revised almost 1 million jobs from last year. So there's questions to the validity of these jobs numbers, 1. 2, when you ask the people how they're actually working, people are working 2 or 3 jobs. And then wages aren't outpacing inflation. So when you have all this, the metrics on the economy can seem somewhat well. But when you ask normal people, and even if you talk to some of the political people, they acknowledge that the economy on paper may be doing well. But when it comes to the actual feeling of the economy, if you talk to business owners, if you talk to average Americans, they're struggling.
I hate to use a term from Ben Shapiro, but I'll use it here. You've heard what he said. Facts don't care about your feelings. I understand that there are people out there that are struggling, but we can only go by the numbers. I want to talk to you about September 10th, and I want to get your thoughts on the border. I want to get your thoughts on Kamala Harris. Let's first talk about the upcoming debate. Is it still on? I guess that's my first question. We've heard back and forth from both campaigns. As far as you know, Harrison, is the debate still on September 10th that you can tell us?
It's on if Kamala Harris and her team wants it to be on. Donald Trump is committed to the debate. Mm-hmm. Kamala Harris wants her open mic moment to school Donald Trump or whatever she plans on doing. It's pathetic. She should. The thing about it is this is a lady that received 0 votes, and she wants to stroll right in and have every demand. It's like, no, you've been late to the party. You were just coronated about 3 weeks ago from a party that unfortunately just had to stomach you because they didn't want you and they didn't want her. And now she wants to dictate all the rules, and she also wants to hide from future debates, which is bad news because the American people deserve debates. They deserve more debate between the two people who are asking the American people for their vote. Kamala Harris has a sense of entitlement to her. She doesn't think she needs to speak to the media. She doesn't think she has to speak to the American people. She's extremely boxed in by her advisors.
She speaks to the American people all the time. She's gone all over the country holding rallies. I understand. Go ahead.
She speaks in teleprompter speeches for about 30 minutes.
Trump doesn't use teleprompters. I've been to multiple rallies. He always uses teleprompters. What's wrong with that?
He uses teleprompters. He also goes off teleprompter. He also does
when he talks about
interviews. He does radio interviews.
When he talks about Hannibal Lecter and electrocuting sharks, you're right. He certainly goes off teleprompter. What do you think about, as a black man, I want to get your thoughts on this, attacking her, saying that she turned black? As an African-American living in this country, I understand you're a Republican. I get it. You're a Trump surrogate. I totally understand that. You think that's appropriate to be going after the color of one's skin, saying that Kamala turned black?
Again, asked and answered. Kamala was asked about this. She kind of laughed it off. My issue with this is that you have a narrative going on only focused on what Donald Trump said and completely ignoring the fact that you have a current sitting president who said you are not black if you...
That's deflection. He apologized.
If you don't vote for me.
And he apologized for that statement. Can you name me a time Donald Trump has apologized for anything? He said she turned black.
The issue that you have, sir, you have Trump derangement syndrome.
No, I don't.
I actually advise you to watch the ad of RFK.
No.
And you're suffering from TDS.
Hold on.
No,
that's not true.
Deflect.
Not true.
You deflect, and you continue to bring up the Democrats' greatest
with
hit
respect, sir.
When it comes to your feelings towards Trump.
With respect, sir, everything I've said is factually accurate. I'm sorry if you don't like the question. Listen, I'm not Newsmax. I challenge Republicans and Democrats on this show. I appreciate you answering my questions, but I'm not here to do a fluffer interview, and I'm sorry if you don't respect that. To say that I have Trump... Hold on. Let me just finish. To say that I have Trump derangement syndrome, I think the people out there that buy the Let's Go Brandon shirts, the people out there that buy the Trump Bibles have Trump...
Are part of a cult?
No,
I already know it.
No,
I'll fill in the blank for you.
You're wrong. I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say they have TFS, Trump fellatio syndrome. Okay, can you admit? Well, listen, you're defending a man, and you have a very difficult job to do. Okay, but I asked challenging questions on this show. Okay,
we're standing on a record that we're proud of.
Okay, so are you proud of his 34 felony count record? Are you proud of his record?
There you go.
No.
This
isn't a talking point. This isn't a talking point. No, if you listen to me, he is a 34 count felon. He is a liable...
BS.
Oh, that's all BS, right? It's only about feelings.
BS indictments.
Right.
BS indictments that
BS.
Every single person who... Cuomo, no Republican, no friend of Republican said if his last name wasn't Trump, he would not be prosecuted on any of these things.
Well, who cares?
You have a
Who cares?
you have a DA in Alvin Bragg
Right.
that is more focused on this political witch hunt than he is cleaning up the streets of New York City that my parents defended as NYPD detectives and my grandfather defended as a sergeant.
I'm not
New
sure.
York City is up in arms.
I'm not sure what that has to do with my questions. We're not talking about policy.
It has everything to do with the question,
No, it
because you're
doesn't.
talking about 34 felonies, which were ridiculously concocted.
In your opinion,
They were. Ask any legal analyst.
A judge and a jury would disagree with you. What about libel? What about libel?
A corrupt judge.
Okay, why is he corrupt? Why is he corrupt? What did he do? That's
corrupt? He did everything possible. He allowed a criminal proceeding to take place in his courtroom that wasn't based on actual law. What they did with the law was a joke. They concocted a state law and they tried to make it into a federal law, which was absolutely shocking for anyone.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. What about libel, sexual abuse? What's your excuse for that one?
You're talking about a situation in which Donald Trump denies ever interacting with this woman. She comes out almost 30 years after the offense, and she brags about her situation. She brags about the money she's going to be spending when she gets Donald Trump.
Doesn't mean it didn't happen.
A lot of this seems to come out of, she was on Anderson Cooper.
Doesn't mean it didn't happen.
The money.
Doesn't mean it didn't happen. What? Okay, let's push that case to the side. Let's push.
You know what she's spending her money on?
Finances have nothing to do with it. It doesn't mean that didn't happen, but that's okay. We'll agree to disagree on that. What about the 25 other women that have accused him of sexual assault or rape, including his ex-wife in a deposition? Are they all liars as well?
Again, Donald Trump's greatest hits.
No, it's a direct question.
Opposition.
It's a direct question.
A situation where people are going to have to come up with their own conclusions about Donald Trump, whether they believe him or not to believe him. I take him for his word. I have no reason not to believe him. When Bill Clinton did what he did, he's still hailed as a hero. He gave a 15 to 20 minute speech at the DNC. No problems there.
I never called him a hero.
Well, the DNC hailed him as a hero, allowed him to speak for 20 minutes when he had multiple accusers of rape and other sexual incidents. So the reality is, Donald Trump has said he doesn't know anything about E. Jean Carroll. He denies all the other attacks on him. And the reality is, none of these attacks came before he came down the escalator.
That's actually not true.
As soon as he
That's not
injected
true.
himself into,
what
for
you
the
just
most
said,
part,
no,
for the most part,
what you just said is factually inaccurate.
Name the other ones.
His ex-wife, who has since passed away, in a court deposition under oath, said that her husband at the time raped her. What you are saying is not factually accurate, sir.
Whenever that happened, I'm not aware of that, but all I can say is Ivana Trump, God rest her soul, she stood by Donald Trump. She said she was voting for him. She was very proud of him, only spoke good things about him in recent interviews. So whatever the issues were there, I'm not here to get in people's family business. All I can say is a majority of the claims against Donald Trump have only come because he's injected himself into politics.
Why is Melania Trump only made one public appearance with Donald Trump at the RNC in the last 2 years? Can you explain that one?
Because people like you will go out and talk disgusting things about her. She is a very insulated woman whose one job is to be a wife and a mother to their son, who's been thrown every single vile thing in this country, been thrown at her. She has been completely ignored as a first lady. First Lady Jill Biden has been hailed as some type of a hero on every single magazine cover, acknowledged as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And when it comes to Melania Trump, people don't want to look at her. They don't even want to talk about her. And it's disgusting. But the reality is you have about 75 million Americans, including myself, who love and appreciate First Lady Melania Trump and everything she did with her Be Best campaign and just the pride that she has and love of this country. The media can say what they want about her. They continue want to throw darts at their marriage, continue want to question their marriage, question her and her values. She stands firm on who she is. She's a confident woman, a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and above all that, she's an amazing mother to Barron.
Well, are you okay then with the attacks on Joe Biden's family, Hunter Biden, the attacks on Joe Biden, many on the, I'm not saying you did this, but people on the right calling him a pedophile, among other things, because last I checked, the only person that was on the Jeffrey Epstein flight log 7 times was Donald Trump. It wasn't Joe Biden. But are you okay with those personal attacks on the Biden family?
Well, Trump just said today if and when elected, he wants to release the Epstein files. He's not afraid of whatever's going to come out of that.
He did
He
say that.
actually came out. He actually came out and said that he kicked out Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club, which conveniently is ignored from the media.
He does say that.
But the reality is, politics is a very, very bloody and rough and tumble sport in which families unfortunately get involved. Now, when you talk about Hunter Biden injected himself into politics when he used his daddy's last name to become a multi-millionaire, and Joe Biden facilitated the transfer of money between oligarchs in Russia, Ukraine, in Turkey. You have all these different bodies that use the Biden last name to funnel millions of dollars into the Biden family.
Can I ask you about
that's
that?
an issue.
Let me ask you, if that's an issue to you, let me ask you, would you also say it's an issue that Jared Kushner took $2.1 billion from the Saudis and Ivanka Trump made $600 million in trademarks from China? If you think a couple
The beautiful thing about interviews like this is because I've dealt with people like you.
I've dealt with people like you as well.
For years, in which I already knew the question was coming, and we actually just have one inch of just straight line reporting.
Was that wrong?
Or I don't know if you're considered a reporter.
So is that false? No, I'm a talk show
You're
host, not a
missing the
reporter.
context. The biggest context that you're missing is that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, they are business people before they even entered politics.
So if you're a business
they
person, it's okay.
business.
So if you're a business person,
They
it's
had
okay.
an established.
They
had.
I got it.
They
Okay.
had, no.
Okay. That makes sense.
You can demean it. You can demean the talking point.
That's a ridiculous excuse.
You,
because they're a
no,
business.
it's not.
Because they're a business person. Jared can get a $2.1 billion check from the Saudis. Because they're a business person, that makes it okay. And they worked in the administration.
He was an international business. He was an international business before he even
That's
joined
an absurd.
politics.
So it's okay for Kushner to get $2.1 billion from the Saudis because by your definition, he was a business person, but that makes it okay. But Hunter wasn't a business person, so he's not allowed to get a couple million. Listen, if there's a law put in place that doesn't allow...
Name one skill that Hunter Biden has that qualifies
that is
him to,
irrelevant
to sit on the board of...
No,
why is it
I'll
irrelevant?
answer your question.
Because you say
I'll answer your question. I'm going to be honest, okay? Because I criticize Democrats and Republicans. There's no question that Hunter Biden took advantage of who his father was. There's no question he got that job because of who his dad is. And I will admit that. But there's no laws on the books that say you can't do that. And there's no actual crime.
You know what is a law? FARA. He violated FARA, did he not?
I don't know if he violated that. Well, here's what I do know.
Why haven't you looked into it? You seem very informed about things. This is one of the biggest violations he had.
Okay, so
he violated FARA.
Gotcha. So you don't think it's a violation, and you don't have any problem with Ivanka Trump making hundreds of million dollars from the Chinese government and Jared Kushner.
So let me use your point.
No,
let me use your
point.
You
don't have
what
any
law
problem
did they
with
break?
that. And
what law did they break?
Your only excuse. I didn't say they broke the law. I never said that. You're putting words in my mouth. You're saying.
What's your point?
My point is, if Jared makes $2.1 billion from the Saudis because of working for Donald Trump, you don't have any problem with that.
For working on behalf of his business that was already established before he even became
because I'm sure
a member of the bureaucracy.
So you're telling me if he wasn't in the
did he make that money? Did he make that money while he was serving in the White House?
I'll tell you exactly how he made that money because months before...
He didn't make it during the White House, I can tell you that.
And if he wasn't in the White House, you think the Saudis would have given him a $2.1 billion check? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, because he had a multi-billion dollar company before he even entered the White House.
You gotta be kidding me. All right.
Signing business deals was something that he wasn't capable of doing.
Right, because Jared Kushner's a businessman, so that makes it okay.
He
All
is.
right. Well, listen, I mean, fair enough. Does January 6th happen if Donald Trump doesn't say the election was stolen? I'm just curious what your answer would be to that.
Does January 6th happen if Nancy Pelosi decided to
That wasn't my
Capitol
question.
building?
Don't answer my question with a question.
Does January 6th happen if
You're not answering. You're deflecting.
If the mayor of D.C. decided to protect the city?
So I'll answer your questions. I'll answer your question, but I just, with all due respect, if you could just answer. We only have a couple more minutes here, and I do appreciate your time, Harrison, by the way. It's a good conversation. I'll repeat it one more time. If months before the 2020 election, or after the election, I should say, months before the January 6th insurrection, if Donald Trump didn't say that the election was stolen and that Joe Biden cheated, does January 6th happen? The question has nothing to do right now with Nancy Pelosi.
Well, for one, Donald Trump didn't incite the riot.
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you.
Well, to answer your point even more directly, I will say that you're discrediting the viewpoints of millions of Americans that have questions about the legitimacy of the election, who regardless of what Donald Trump had to say, were up in arms where they feel like their election was stolen from them.
Yeah.
And regardless of what Donald Trump told them to do,
which it wasn't.
Regardless of what Donald Trump did or did not tell them to do, they were going to exercise their right to protest.
Yeah,
now,
well, that's not exactly what happened. Yeah, go ahead.
No one excuses the people that were taking this too far and breaking the law and hurting our law enforcement. No one on our side of the aisle, for the most part, is condoning.
He called them. Hold on a second. Donald Trump called them patriots and hostages. Some of those people attacked police officers.
Some of them are hostages to the system.
No.
Have you
Donald Trump? Hold on. Donald Trump did not say some of them. He's characterized all of them as hostages and patriots. Some of those officers were beaten with their own batons, and Donald Trump has called them patriots and hostages, sir. Do you defend that type of language? He didn't say some of them. He characterized it as all of them. They're all hostages and patriots. Direct quote. Do you support people who attack police officers as patriots and hostages?
My hope for you and your audience is that your base and your voice goes up just as high when Kamala Harris bails out rioters looters during the summer. No. Because if you want to be this guy
answer the
who
question.
Wants to be holier than thou,
you can ask
Mr.
me about Harris. I will answer that question.
If you want to be Mr. Sanctimonious about this, and the base in your voice wants to go up when you're talking about January 6th.
Because Harris never called. Can you name me one prominent Democrat in office, including Harris, who's ever said people that have attacked police officers and assaulted them as hostages and patriots? Go. Give me one prominent Democrat.
They bail them out of prison. That's the problem.
Excuse me. That's different.
They bail them out of prison.
Excuse me. That's different.
They have cashless bail.
That's
which
different.
Doesn't even afford them the opportunity. Oh, it's different. But they can go out
raising money for someone that you don't believe can afford legal representation is different than characterizing someone who beats. Why won't you answer my? Why won't you? Why won't you?
Lighting a target on fire.
Why is it always whataboutism with you guys? Why don't you answer my question directly? Donald Trump characterized some of those people who committed very violent crimes on January 6th, all of them, as patriots and hostages. Why won't you answer my question directly? Do you support that language? Do you think everybody on January 6th, including those that committed very serious crimes, are patriots and hostages? That question has nothing to do with...
Donald Trump has also addressed some of his concerns regarding the people that broke the law, and he's always said we're going to stand for our law enforcement, we're going to stand for law and order. You're missing that part of his quotes too, which I'm not that surprised about.
Okay,
now,
well,
the reality is when you talk about the hostages that Donald Trump talks about, you have a situation where the D.C. district attorney and Joe Biden's DOJ has treated these people as hostages, keeping them in prison. They had this ridiculous law that was overturned by the Supreme Court, which ended up, if you just happen to be on the grounds of the Capitol, was rights for you to be locked up, no cancer treatments, be in jail for 6-7 months.
I can't speak to that
without even a hearing. You can't speak to it because you're not
wrong.
You haven't dedicated a minute of your time to actually look into some of these people's situations and come to the conclusion.
Yes, I have.
And come to the conclusion that what we have seen is actually devastating anybody, regardless of your political affiliation. You should be concerned how some of these people have been treated in these prisons. It's actually very sad.
Okay, you keep using the term "some of these people" again.
Okay, but see, you're going to get. You've been covering Donald Trump enough to have your derangement syndrome.
I don't have derangement syndrome, sir. Quite frankly.
In my opinion, you do. In my opinion, you do.
Okay, well, in my opinion,
I'm just going to be keeping 100% honest with you.
In my opinion, I'm going to keep myself honest with you. You get paid a lot of money to spew Donald Trump right-wing talking points. So if you're going to insult me,
beautiful thing about it, this is an unpaid job.
Guess what?
All volunteer because
guess
I want to take the country back.
Guess what?
So
guess what?
We
haven't lost
the country.
At the FECs. We haven't
look at the FEC. I'm not being paid.
Okay, we haven't lost the country, sir. I didn't
vote.
We have not.
We have 10.3 million illegal immigrants in this country, and the Democrats want to make them voters overnight.
Why did Donald Trump not pass the border bill then? If you care so much about the border, with MAGA Republicans,
the border bill would have allowed 1 million illegal immigrants in a year.
Right, here we go. So MAGA Republicans,
every single year they would have continued to allow illegal immigrants. So the right number for illegal immigrants into this country is 0.
Why? By the
Zero.
way, there are less people crossing the border illegally right now than there were when Donald Trump left office. But you don't want to. You just want to talk about feelings. You don't want to talk about actual facts. Okay.
If you're going to stand on your radio show and say that the border is not in crisis, I'll
When did
leave
I
you
say
to
that?
it and let your audience to laugh you
Hey,
off.
Harrison, did I say that, or are you putting words in my mouth?
You're saying that the
What did I
crisis
say?
is lower than it was.
What
under
I
Trump.
am saying, first of all, I didn't use the term crisis. Again, I need you to pay attention, Harrison.
No, you wouldn't.
Okay?
You wouldn't use it. You wouldn't use
Harrison,
the word crisis
Harrison,
because that wouldn't be
Harrison,
something that you would do.
why don't you ask me a question instead of putting words in my mouth? Do I think it's a crisis? Yes, I do. We've had issues at the border for decades. It's horrible. My sister passed away from a fentanyl overdose. Nobody takes this more
Sorry to hear
personally.
that.
Thank you. Nobody takes this more personally than I do. But you know what I don't do? I don't blame Joe Biden or a politician for why my sister passed away. We've had issues at the border for decades. There were also people that died from drug overdoses, hundreds of thousands of them, by the way, when Trump was in office. I don't blame Donald Trump for that, no more than I will blame Donald Trump for COVID. But if you want to just blame everything on Joe Biden, that's absurd and it's disingenuous, sir.
It's not disingenuous. The reason we have a border crisis, the reason why fentanyl is able to come in record levels is because of Joe Biden's and Kamala Harris's failed policies at the border. You can't deny the fact that when he came into office, he did everything possible to take away every single border executive order or policy that the former president has put into effect. Why take away Remain in Mexico? Why take away, I think it was Title 90, Article 92, whatever it was, that kept people overseas before coming into our country.
Why didn't he build a wall? Why didn't he build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it? 16%. 16% of the wall was built and Mexico didn't pay for it, and he campaigned on it for 2 years on that slogan.
One, you refurbished a lot of wall. He refurbished
16% was built. 16%.
A lot. You're talking about new build.
Yeah.
You're talking about new build, so let's have a genuine conversation.
Sure.
You're talking about new build.
Did Mexico build
and the administration
did Mexico pay for that refurbishing?
No, but what Mexico did do is put 28,000 troops on the border to make sure that the border was all
We're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Is that a failed policy? Because that's what Donald Trump ran on when he ran against Hillary Clinton. Is that a failed policy?
Donald Trump's immigration policies are not a failed policy, and the reason why you see Donald Trump up double digits when it comes to the issue of immigration, because the American people trust him on this issue, because they know that this is not a political tool. That Kamala Harris is now featuring the border wall and ads. She wants to make it seem like she wants to support this border. This is a woman that wanted to get rid of ICE. She wanted to abolish ICE.
She supported the border bill and MAGA Republicans. By the way, do you know that Donald Trump once called Mr. Langford, one of the lead faces, MAGA Republicans who put this bill together, as one of the toughest Republicans on the border? He helped put this bill together.
Listen,
go ahead.
You know who also opposed the Langford bill in the Senate? Mitch McConnell, no friend of President Trump, because Mitch McConnell himself, Mitt Romney also opposed this bill. So some of your biggest fans, the Republicans who happen to side with your side more than our side.
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And now let's be factually accurate. And that's okay, because you don't know anything about my past. And I don't know a lot about your past either, but I appreciate the conversation. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I voted for 8 Republicans in the 2022 midterms. I make no mistake about it. I am very anti-Donald Trump.
And you voted for Joe Biden?
I did, and I'll tell you why. It was an anti.
And you voted for Kamala Harris in 2024.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you why. It is an anti. You can laugh or you can listen, because the reason why you guys lost in 2020 is you don't listen to people like me. I've been a registered independent my whole life. It was an anti-Donald Trump vote. If Donald Trump just stopped attacking people and he stopped going after POW.
You're voting on personality, and you're not voting on policy.
I vote on policy as well. He's against abortion. He's for abortion. He said that he was proud of overturning Roe versus Wade and being a part of that. And then the other day, all of a sudden, he says 6 weeks is not long enough. We need to make it longer. No, the biggest tax breaks for the top 1% in decades. No, I am against that. I'm against that. So there are a lot of policies.
And you're for price controls?
I'll tell you what I am for.
You're for taxing capital gains, and you're for a rise in the corporate income tax.
I'll tell you I'll tell you how I vote, and it might be different clearly from the way you vote. And maybe,
based on personality, it seems.
No, I don't put policy ahead of principles. I don't want a 34-count felon rapist as the leader of the free world. I don't want a guy that attacks women on looks and sides with Vladimir Putin to be the leader of the free world. I don't want a guy
But you want a Vladimir Putin on the rise that didn't happen under Donald Trump.
Okay,
you want an open border.
Right. So you
want
blame,
higher inflation.
So you want to blame
You want
Trump for
to
that.
completely get
Biden
rid of
for
the
that.
fossil fuel industry. See, the thing about it, my issue with people like you is that, listen, I'm not discrediting the fact that there are people in this country that will refuse to vote for Donald Trump because they don't like him. And I have people in my family like this.
Understood.
And I say, listen, I'm not going to debate you over personality. You either like Donald Trump or you don't like Donald Trump. And that might have worked for 2020. Or principles, the higher moral order that people want to stand on.
Crimes and embarrassing this country on the national stage. Go ahead.
And Joe Biden didn't embarrass the country when he's half asleep the whole time.
What?
So when you talk about,
what are you talking about?
He's been on vacation 40% of his
Donald
40%
Trump.
of his
Donald Trump. Okay, you want to talk about vacation? Let's do that.
No, I'm going back.
No. You're talking about. I'll let you finish, but you're talking about Joe Biden on vacation. Donald Trump played more golf in 4 years than any other president in
they
this
track these
country.
Things, right? They track these things.
Yeah, I know they do.
They track these
I know
things,
they do.
And Donald Trump is not even close when it comes to the level of quote unquote vacation that a president has.
Donald Trump went after Barack Obama for playing too much golf. In 4 years, Donald Trump played more golf than Barack Obama played in 8 years. So go ahead.
Inflation was what? Inflation was 1.7. We had a
then we had
border.
COVID. So you don't want
to had peace in the Middle East. We had
really
Operation Legend that put federal forces in cities like St. Louis.
How was the country when Trump left office? How was the economy compared to where he took it over? You don't want to blame him for
because of COVID. Because of COVID.
And exactly, but you don't want to blame him for that. When he said 15 cases down to 0, it's going to be gone by Easter. But he handled it good, right? He took coronavirus press conferences and he turned them into campaign rallies, right?
I called Operation Warp Speed. He did something that no other president probably would have been able to do. He created 3 vaccines. He put
I'll give him credit for that. I give him credit.
He built massive he organized massive aircraft carriers off the coast of New York and other major cities.
Oh, no, I'll give him credit for that.
House patients. The issue with COVID is that you had Democrat governors like Andrew Cuomo and Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom who decided to take people's liberties away the biggest thing that they did was they ruined a generation of students by closing away schools when all the evidence said that children are not as vulnerable to the disease as old people, yet they still listen to Weingarten and the teachers union.
How about Dr. Fauci?
Schools.
Wasn't it Donald Trump that hired Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx? I thought he only hired the best people.
Dr. Fauci has been a bureaucrat for over 30 years.
Then why did Donald Trump hire him then?
Because, and if you would have fired him, what would you have said?
I didn't ask you about firing him. I asked you a question. Why did he hire him?
So what's the opposite of hiring someone?
He only hires the best people, right?
Dr. Fauci was already in the government. You're having such a disingenuous argument.
No,
I
it's
feel
not.
bad for the people that listen to you. You make it
feel
seem
bad
as if
for the
Donald
people
Trump
that listen to me. Yet the
you
guy
went above and beyond.
You feel bad.
You went above and beyond to be disingenuous with this
I'm
argument.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
listen,
you are.
When you go on,
Donald Trump was Dr. Fauci a part of the bureaucracy at the CDC and NIH before COVID when Donald Trump was president? Yes or no?
If you want to be condescending,
yes or no?
I'm being respectful to you. If you want to be,
yes or no?
I'm going to answer your question.
The thing about it is you have a platform in which I've dedicated 30 minutes of my time,
which I appreciate,
and you're not being genuine.
No, I am.
You're not being genuine in the conversation.
You talk about. No, I am, and I'll answer any question you have for me. I think you're the one that's being disingenuous, with all due respect. You talk about the responsibility of having a platform, right? We agree. I think when you have a platform, you have a responsibility. Yet the former president of the United States continues to lie about elections. He continues to lie and say he won. He's the same guy with the platform that he had during COVID, said 15 cases down to 0. It's going to be gone by Easter. The guy with the platform is the same guy who attacks our military, attacks Gold Star families, attacks women based on looks. He has nicknames for people he doesn't like. And yet you have the gall to say, Brian, you have a platform. I feel bad for your listeners. How do you look a child in the eye and say, this is our president, we should be proud of him, when he literally verbally assaults everybody that disagrees with him, and yet you want to talk to me about the responsibility of a platform? Give me a frickin' break.
Are you done?
Go ahead. But don't say, Brian, you have a responsibility because you have a platform. I'm not Newsmax, sir. You make appearances on Newsmax, and they ask
you made that point earlier.
Okay, so
I've also done News Nation, and if you're friends at CNN and MSNBC, you want me on, I'm happy to do this show too.
And that's why I wanted you to come on, because I appreciate the fact.
I'm not afraid of these conversations. My thing about it is that you are a part of the media, right? You're obviously
What are you talking about? I'm by myself. I own my own entity here. Nobody tells me what to do or say. These are my opinions.
Fine, but you're still part of the media apparatus in which we discuss politics.
Do you ever criticize OAN? Do you ever criticize?
I'm not sure how big the audience is. But the reality is, what I'm talking about, the conversation is that you're talking about Fauci, and your point is that why did Donald Trump hire you? And all I said is a very disingenuous argument, because Dr. Fauci was in charge of NIH before Donald Trump was even elected president. So it wasn't a matter of hiring or firing the man.
Listen, I don't blame him. I don't blame Donald Trump for hiring him.
Just acknowledge the point that your whole little skit about
the
hiring and firing thing was disingenuous, because Dr. Fauci was already a part of NIH before Donald Trump was elected.
We're not doing Saturday Night Live. This isn't a skit. The reason why I bring that up, with all due respect, is Donald Trump is the guy that has always said, I only hire the best people. He hired Michael Cohen. He hired Peter Navarro. He hired Paul Manafort. He hired a plethora of people that have gone to jail, that are convicted felons. So when he says, I only hire the best people.
So did Hillary Clinton.
Okay, again, there goes your whataboutism again. Donald Trump said, I only hire the best people. And then you've got 30 or 40 people that won't even be voting for him. His own former vice president won't even be voting for him. You've got Republicans for Harris. You've got people like Stephanie Grisham.
You got Democrats for Trump.
Really? So what Democrat in Joe Biden's administration has come out on the RNC floor, made a speech, and said, I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump? Can you name me one person that did that at the DNC? Because I can name you a plethora of people that worked for Donald Trump, that spoke and were at the RNC. Can you at the DNC, excuse me. Can you name me one person that worked for Joe Biden that spoke at the RNC saying, I'm voting for Donald Trump? Give me one, please.
Well, the answer is easy, zero.
Thank you.
The biggest thing is that you have a party in the Democratic Party that did something worse than anything that Stephanie Grisham or any of the rest of them could have done.
Okay.
They conducted a coup against Joe Biden in an effort to push him out, which was successful. For a party to do that under Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, to enact a coup, to let 14 million primary people basically say, oh, well, thanks for coming out and participating in democracy.
Let me ask you a question.
Let's talk about the coup. We have our own idea of who we want in power, and it's not going to be Joe Biden. And unfortunately, it has to be Kamala Harris, because we can't take away the black woman from the ticket now.
Well, I don't know what the color. I don't know what to do. So. I don't know why you guys keep wanting to bring up the color of her skin, but not orange, man.
The Democrats, this is all they do. What was Joe Biden's one qualification for vice president?
First of all, it wasn't
black woman.
First of all, it wasn't the only qualification.
It was.
Oh, really? So it had nothing to do with the fact that she was an elected senator. It had nothing to do with the fact that she was a prosecutor.
All that's cool. But if she was white, she would have never got the job.
Okay.
Tell me I'm wrong.
So you said it was.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You said it was the only.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm answering your question. You said it was the only qualification. That is not fact. No, it wasn't.
So the same thing for Ketanji Brown Jackson. The only qualification she had, based on the role, outside of the other accolades that she has, is because of the color of her skin. So tell me I'm wrong.
So if she's not qualified, and the only reason why Joe Biden hired her as her VP is because she's black, then why are the polls so close? Why did Donald Trump lose the popular vote in 2016? Why did Donald Trump lose the popular vote in 2020?
Stupid argument.
No, it's not. The majority of people in this country.
It's not how we vote. It's not how we vote.
I know we
congratulations.
have.
Congratulations, LA, San Francisco.
No.
Chicago, New
It's
York
the country.
City. Congratulations.
It's the country.
No,
if it
the
wasn't
Electoral College. This is the way we've
which
been
is
voting
rigged,
since the history of the country.
Which is rigged for Republicans, because Republicans have lost 7 of the
Not
last
rigged
8.
for Republicans. What are you talking about?
I'll give you the answer if you'll listen. 7 of the last 8 presidential elections, Republicans have lost the popular vote. Donald Trump would never have been the president of the United States if not for something called the Electoral College. You know what that means? I'll make it easy for you, Harrison. No, hold on.
New York and California would dictate every single election.
It doesn't matter what state you live in. The point
you live in Nevada, right?
It doesn't matter what state you live in.
You live in Nevada, right?
Yes, hold on. The point is the overwhelming.
So Nevada's rights
Nevada would have zero say in any election if you just go off of what you want, which is the
shouldn't
popular vote.
matter where you live. My vote in Nevada should mean the same as someone who votes in Nebraska,
That's
Idaho.
not the way it works.
I
sir.
understand
That's not the way it works.
I understand that's not the way it
So
works.
then what's your point?
The point is that Donald Trump said 2 weeks ago in a weird press conference at Mar-a-Lago, among other things,
Weird. Here we go.
He said that 75% of the country support me. If that was true, Harrison, and it's not, he would have won.
Have you ever looked at a map? Have you ever looked at a political map in which you have?
Have I looked at a map? That's your response. He said 75% of the country.
Relax. Okay.
Respond.
Tone it down.
Oh.
The point he's making is if you look at a map of the United States and the voting precincts down to the precinct level, down to the county level, you see a sea of red. And you truly only see pockets of blue in the major cities. So the overall point, I didn't hear him say that. You track Donald Trump's every word more than I do. So, kudos
you work
to you.
You work in the campaign. I'm shocked you didn't hear him talk about that.
Well, you have all his greatest hits. So I've got the actual policy.
They're not greatest hits.
Got his greatest
they're
hits.
not greatest hits. They're lies that every single day it's a lie.
Well, there you go.
So it's not great.
There you go. You have his greatest lie of the day. You catalog these things. These are the things that keep you up at night.
No,
the things that keep me up at night is the fact that we have inflation that's been over 20%. We have an open border.
Right. It's not open.
It's not
an open border.
You have an issue with the realities of what people face. I don't know what bunker, what home you live in.
Don't live in a bunker.
If you stepped out,
don't live in a bunker.
Out and you talk to average Americans, and you actually
because Donald Trump,
it's
not
anything you've said.
Because Donald Trump,
nothing you've said today is a concern of the American people.
Really? So a concern isn't abortion when it's the number 2 issue on everyone's minds in this country? That's not an issue.
It's not the number 2 issue. It's not but you haven't really talked about abortion. Let's be honest with what this conversation has been. You've been talking about sexual assault claims. You've been talking about 75% of the country. You want to talk about I've hired the greatest people. You've just taken a snapshot of all of Trump's one-off comments, and you've decided to have this whole interview be talking about things that really don't matter. None of the stuff you mentioned actually matter to everyday Americans.
To you, a surrogate, it doesn't matter, but to average Americans...
Because, listen, most of my friends, I'm a 50-50 person. Half my friends are liberals, half my friends are conservatives.
Okay.
They're not talking about this stuff. They don't have a derangement toward the man. They just either agree with the policies or they don't. I have a small level of people in my life that literally cannot stand the ground in which Donald Trump walks on, and that's sorry for them. That's how you feel. You can't stand the man. But the reality is he was our former president. I'm hoping
that is the reality.
I'm hoping he'll be our next president. You can't stand him. And you're biased in the conversation. You can't even have an honest conversation about
what have
politics
I said that's a lie?
And policy.
What have I said that's a lie? What have I said that's disingenuous?
You've been so caught up in your feelings about the man.
Be specific.
You cannot even have a genuine conversation
what are you talking about?
Policy, politics.
I've been
normal. You've been talking, like
I
said,
Donald Trump.
Hits.
Hold on. You think Donald Trump talks about policy? You think Donald Trump?
Yes, he does.
Oh, really? When he talks about
you've been to a couple rallies?
Yeah, I have, and I heard him talk about electrocuting sharks in Nevada. I continually,
there you go again.
No. See, you dismiss it. Donald Trump rarely ever sticks to policy, and he sticks to insulting people, and he sticks to attacks on our democracy.
Equal opportunity offender. Doesn't matter what you look like, who you are. If you have a beef with him, he's going to have a beef with you. It's just how he operates.
Equal opportunity offender. All right. Well, hey, listen. I will say this, genuinely speaking, I appreciate you for coming on this show, for answering my questions, even though we're going to agree to disagree on a lot of them. I've had a ton of Trump surrogates on the show, but I will say this, Harrison, I challenge people. Some people like it.
I like it.
This
is Thanksgiving dinner for me, man. My sister is a raging liberal. I'm completely comfortable in this arena.
I can tell you like it, because if you didn't like it, you would have hung up the phone a long time ago, and I do give you credit for that. I had
my wife deal with the plumber, and I'm stuck in my car while the plumber, my wife is 36 and a half weeks pregnant. I got the plumber at the house, and she's dealing with him because I'm talking to you about nonsense.
Listen, here's where we respectfully disagree. I'm not talking about nonsense, and I think a lot of Americans in this country would not consider felonies and sexual abuse and the things that
coming up in the polls.
Okay,
coming up in the polls.
I don't know. Maybe you're looking at I don't know which poll you're looking at, but ever since
ABC, Reuters, you name the poll. This stuff isn't even on the polls. What's on the polls? What's actually listen? I would love if I'm ever in Nevada. Let's go hit up Henderson. Let's hit up
I would
Las
love
Vegas.
to.
Let's
I
hit
would
up
love to.
Reno.
Let's do it.
If you go and talk to average people at the grocery store, if you talk to average people coming out of school, dropping their kids off at school, they're not talking about nearly anything that you just discussed today. Now, everything that you said today, that will play big time at like the local country club over here in Northern Virginia, where these people hate Trump. They hate the ground that he lives, that he walks on.
Really?
They hate the man. They hate the person.
Country clubs, I think a lot of those elitist, white elitists support Trump. I'm surprised you would say that.
No, we're the party of the working class, man. You know that now.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I mean, if you go to Mar-a-Lago, you just see everyday working class people, right? You don't see elitists at Mar-a-Lago ever, right? Is that what you're saying?
You're talking about Mar-a-Lago, but
yeah,
Trump is a man of the people.
Oh, sure.
He goes out.
Given a $500 million company from his dad, he's had a silver spoon in his mouth since he was a child. And you want
$500 million and turned that into $5 billion. $500,000 turned into $5 billion.
Oh, really?
Tell me how to do
it. Did? I'd love
Tell me how to do it.
I'd love to see the evidence of that because I could talk to you about all the businesses.
What's his network?
What's his network? I would love to talk to you about that, and I would also love to talk to you about all the businesses that have failed. I'd love to talk to you about whether the Trump steaks or the Trump water.
You're just a Trump hater. It's cool.
No,
it's cool,
I just
man.
hate that.
You're a Trump hater.
I hate bad people. I think you're a nice guy. You're probably a nice guy.
You're Trump. Listen, what I'm gonna do is, if you send me your address, I'm gonna send you some Trump merch. We're gonna get you back onto the right side. I got a Trump sign on my front car. I got a Trump sticker on my car. Come back into the good side, man. You have to put away. You have to put away.
Tell you what, I'll make a deal with
animosity.
You. I'll make a deal with you.
Focus on the policy.
I'm gonna
focus on the policy.
All right, I'm gonna make a deal with you, and then I appreciate. I want to make a deal with you. If you come in studio when you're in Nevada, we can have some fun. I would assume you might not agree to this, but I'll agree to it. I will wear all the Trump gear that you give me if you wear all the Harris gear that I give you. And then we'll have a nice sit down and we'll just talk about policy and we won't talk about character, even though that's a big part of it for me, a moral compass. And we can just stick to policy and I will not bring up character. If you agree to that, I'll agree to it, and I'll have you in studio for an hour. This is, by the way, the most listened to talk show in Las Vegas. I have 100,000 listeners a day. If you're willing to do that, you seem like actually a really nice guy. Even though we disagree on policy, you seem like a guy that I could have a beer with, and we could have a conversation. If you're willing to do that, I'll do it.
See, well, I'll say this: you're a disgruntled Republican. I've never been a Democrat in my life. Never will. Never.
I never was a Republican. I don't know what you're talking about.
You are a disgruntled independent who doesn't like the current state of the Republican Party. We can agree on that.
I think when Donald Trump took over, there's a lot of Republicans that I have a lot of respect for. And there are, Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Lauren Boeberts, the Jim Jordans, people that don't pass any bills, but all they do are they're noisemakers. No, I don't like it. Listen, I don't like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. I don't think they should be congresswomen. I think they're despicable. Okay. But yes, you are correct. Fundamentally speaking, I don't have a lot in common today with a lot of MAGA Republicans. Yes, you're factually accurate.
There you go. That's what I was getting to.
Correct.
My point is that the reason why I would never wear any Democrat merch is because I've never associated myself with that party, never will. So unfortunately, I can't take you up on that part of the deal. But regardless, the conversation is a good one in the sense of we can actually talk about the issues and the policy. Listen, I like I said, I don't get paid to do this. I do this out of the goodness of my heart because I support Donald Trump.
Understood.
I will never, and I tell people this all the time, one of the biggest lines I have is I'm never going to debate you on personality. If you don't like Donald Trump, I'm not paid here to, or not, I'm not paid. I'm not here to try to change your perception of his personality. That's on him. That's on someone else. All I can tell you
go ahead.
Is that when it comes down to the things that actually matter, listen, mean tweets are one thing, but when I have to spend $3.78 on a tank of gas, I'm sorry, give me all the mean tweets in the world. When I, as a 28-year-old man, may have to be drafted if there's a World War III, a nuclear war, who knows what's going to happen with this crazy foreign policy that this administration has, that's a problem. Give me all the mean tweets.
Yeah, again,
when I see in Northern Virginia...
Respectfully, this isn't just about a few mean tweets. Again, that's a right-wing talking point.
It is. It's personality.
Okay,
this is what it is.
A mean tweet doesn't get you...
This isn't a personality. This isn't high school. This is not a personality
You're right. This isn't high school, and I don't want a 16-year-old running the country. This isn't just about mean tweets. This is about felons. This is about a convicted felon. This is about somebody who writes love letters to evil, murderous dictators. This is about someone. If you,
the same evil dictators that were kept at bay.
What do you mean he doesn't? He's openly admitted that he's written love letters to Kim Jong-un. He took Vladimir Putin's side on a world stage over our own CIA and FBI. What do you mean he doesn't?
And Ukraine was invaded during Donald Trump's administration.
So that's Joe Biden's fault, but COVID wasn't Donald Trump's fault. So if it happens under Joe Biden, it's Joe Biden's fault.
Yeah, because the Biden administration had due notice that there was an incursion happening on the border of Ukraine and Russia, and they did nothing about it. And they have no plan. What is the Biden plan when it comes to Ukraine? It's just shelling out millions upon millions and billions of dollars to a country that, for the most part, is using the money, yes, to fight the war, but also to fund pension programs. Okay. We need to talk about this. The money that's going to Ukraine isn't always going for the.
I believe that if you want to have a conversation, which we don't have time to do today, about the funds that are being sent to Ukraine, I think that is a very fair conversation to have.
This is almost a bipartisan issue because a lot of people on the right, there's a lot of people on the left that are tired of it too. And Donald Trump has the best response.
But when Donald Trump,
he said, "I just want people to stop dying."
Right, Donald Trump.
I want people to stop dying.
Right. So when he picks up the phone, he says he can pick up the phone and end the war in a day. It's a joke. Okay, it's a joke. Okay, it's a very complex issue. So's the issue.
He could do more in one day than this administration has done in 3.5 years.
Okay,
yes, he could.
I definitely disagree with that, but we were losing 3,000 to 5,000 people a day from COVID when he left office. But we'll have
more people died under Joe Biden than they did under Donald Trump. That's a fact. Look it up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But look at the economy and look at where COVID was when he left office. But we have to leave it at that. I would love to have you back on. Because it's
hey, you say the word, you know how to get a hold of me.
I got to be honest with you. I didn't think this was going to be a 1 hour debate, but it turned into a 1 hour. I thought it was going to be a 15. I give you credit for coming on. You sound like a nice guy. We just disagree on a lot of stuff, but I in all seriousness though, I do appreciate you coming on and taking the time. And if you're in Nevada, we'd love to have you in studio, my friend. And I will be very.
It's a big, important state because of the Electoral College. Your state matters.
You see,
thank Republicans for keeping your state relevant.
You see, well, for the most part, with that statement, let's end on something we agree on. I do think Nevada is a very important swing state, so I agree with you there.
Yeah, Harrison, and is leaning in Trump's favor.
Well, the last polls show that Harris is actually winning by a couple points, but that's why we have elections in November. I do find it interesting though that Donald Trump says if he loses, he's not going to concede. That's the big fundamental difference here. Harris will concede if she loses. Donald Trump won't. But we will leave it at that. Harrison, thank you so much, my friend. I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us. Love to have you back on, sir. And I can't wait to see what social media has something to say about some of this interview. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Harrison.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right, you too. I think that's the longest debate I've ever had on radio, and I do give Harrison credit for coming on and doing that. Whoa, that was a long one. I don't think we have enough time. All right, I'll open up the phone lines. We got like 5 minutes here. 702-221-7283. I'm only going to give